Good day, brothers and sisters, One Nation Tribal Alliance, friends and family near and far. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our native talk today. Eve is getting excited. I know she is.
Yeah.
I could just feel it in her. So, um, we're gonna have a just basically a talk session today. I'm gonna ask her questions. She's gonna ask me questions, and that's just the way it's gonna be. So, again, ladies first.
hmm
Go
Thank
ahead.
you. Miigwech. Of course, I'm Eve Howard, and I'm from the Ojibwe Nation. I am from the White Earth Tribe, which is White Earth Band of Ojibwe, which is in Minnesota. And we do a lot of powwows and put on one, every year. And where my parents were from, which was Ponsford. I mean, they call it Pine Point now, but it was Ponsford at one point. And excuse me, I don't know what it is. I think it's just the pollen in the air. But I was just talking, and I was like, like some of the southwestern tribes, do they have powwows too?
No, we don't. Not in Zuni. I mean, there's groups like families that are looking into it, and they'll powwow, but that's not a event in Zuni. I mean, powwow is not a major event. I mean, now go 200 miles east into Zuni. I mean, into the New Mexico. Just got back from Albuquerque, which had a big gathering of nations, but um, you know, looking at powwows, it's getting too commercialized now. In the beginning, to me, I remember when I was first going to a powwow. This is my experience at a powwow, and just watching them dance. I mean, listen to the heartbeat of the drum, listen to the songs, and I said, "What are they saying in the song?" I try to understand it, but and this one elderly lady came up to me and says, "It's not the you don't worry about the words. It's the vibration, the pitch, the tone."
Mhm.
And I said, "Wow, that is, it's above 432 hertz, which is the miracle tone." And I said, "Man, you have to really kick me hard to scream that high to sing a song like that, because and that lady was telling me, she says, no, some of these people, they said to get real high voice like that, you have to be a crybaby." And I said, wow, I guess I wasn't a crybaby because I guess get that high voice, but it was an event that really puzzled me because I remember during Gore Dance. During Gore Dance, one of the dancers' feather came off, and when it hit the ground, boy, they stopped everything. And
Mhm.
they stopped everything, and people had to come out, and I don't know what they did, but they did something, and then they picked. I mean, it took like a good hour just for them
Yes.
to pick up that feather, and I said, man, I would just go there, but
Yeah.
I don't know. What can you elaborate more on that? Because again, I'm not much of a powwow person, but that's what I witnessed, and I've always wondered about that.
hmm
So, what does it mean when a feather drops like that?
That's a good question. I don't know the direct meaning. I wish I had my medicine man on speed dial, but uh, well, I know that I've been to when I was younger. I was there. When I was a little kid, you're like running around, and then all of a sudden the music stops. So we went to investigate, and it was the same thing. There had been a feather that had dropped, an eagle feather,
Hmm.
and my parents were didn't say much about it, but I realized that she was my I could hear them talking because we went and sat down by our parents and stuff, and everything was really quiet. And they had called out, and they had a medicine man come, and he came down, and they had to do like a lot of praying, and he had it's like a not really like a hand drum, but there was like some, he had something that he was using, and then there was like tobacco and sage, he was burning and stuff, and then then they could, finally pick it up. But I think it was my parents had talked on the way home. I don't know, this is folklore, things that they think because maybe they weren't aware because they were boarding school children. But they said that the feather had pointed at a elderly man, and they also had to he didn't feel good that night, and he ended up having problems, and he passed away. But my parents were, probably frightened because they didn't know, does that happen? And then me hearing it, of course, that's what I thought too. So I don't know. That's a really good question. I think I'm gonna write that down, and maybe next week I'll have an answer
Yeah,
as to the full question on why. I mean, I've witnessed it, but I mean, you don't really know. I just know that it was like a big ceremony. I think anything sacred, which, they consider, a lot of things to be sacred, but eagle feathers are one of them. And
yeah,
I don't know exactly why. I know that, in a lot of like especially like the US, the eagle is a symbol, of strength and everything else that's written about the United States and symbology with eagles, and then how a lot of people and that are indigenous feel towards eagles. I mean, I'm every time we see one, we're always like pull over, pull over and take out, I always keep a pouch of tobacco in my car, not only for protection but also for times like this where I would take a little bit out and go and put down. I used to live in Mille Lacs, and they had eagles that were nesting in this tree, and we go out and put a tobacco offering and kind of look. From friend of mine was he was going through and to be he's going through midday to be a medicine man. So he was like, I'm going over. He's like looking, for the feathers, and he goes, if there was any, and he looked at me and he said, "Are you on your moon?" And I was like, "Oh, that was a weird question." But I mean, these things, really are a huge thing with women, as far as our, spirituality, as they we weren't not supposed to cook food for others, and do other things. And a lot of people were like, "Oh, because you're dirty, right? Because, during the moon you're, no, it's the exact opposite. And, you are, that is when your power is like at the height, and it, you can, my mother said you can make someone sick,
hmm,
so and we always had to like, wear our medicine bags and stuff and try not to be cooking, when we're on our moons and stuff.
wow,
And that's why like when you go to powwow, if you're on your moon, you can't dance. That I mean, I don't know, I can't speak for every tribe, but I know that is in mine. You can't, we're told we can't go and dance,
hmm.
you know. So that's a little Q&A there.
Oh, okay. Eagle feathers in ours, in my tribe. Um, Now the religious part of the organization, they use a lot of eagle feathers for their dancing and everything. But as far as
Hmm.
medicine, or as far as the people, we don't use hardly any eagle feathers other than maybe the wing feathers, and
Hmm.
that's about it. Maybe not even the tail feathers, but what we use mostly, is those maybe an inch tall back feathers of an eagle, or the chest feathers, those little
The
small
puffy
ones.
ones.
No, not the fluffy ones.
Not the fluffy ones. No.
No, no, just the little bitty ones that cover the skin, in the back and the front, and that's about it. I mean,
Mm,
we use that more than anything else because of our prayer sticks, and but as far as the long tail feathers, um, we have a eagle sanctuary back home, and if you want to have a particular eagle feather, now some of the medicine group they use eagle feathers in many ways, so, but the fluffy ones, the plumes, I mean, they use that. And so, those kind of eagle feathers are, people would request them from the sanctuary. And, when they molt, and lose the feathers, they use them. So, eagle feathers we use some, but not the whole eagle, The eagle is
mm-hmm.
safe, we're not to pluck it ball if it flies over, So, you know, um, and even the claws, even the talons,
Yeah.
we don't use that at all, or anything. I mean, I you know, back home, if you want an eagle from the National Park Service, I think you submit an application with a $25 fee for delivering, and and then you petition the National Park Service, and when they find an eagle that haven't either been killed or died of natural causes or whatever, you know, um, you can receive that eagle. They'll mail
Mhm.
it to you,
Yep. Yep.
and
My mother-in-law had that.
yeah, and so and you can get the whole eagle too, and we've done that. I mean, some people back home have done it, but they just use the feather. But I got some kids that are in a Navajo tribe, and their grandpa was a medicine man,
Hmm.
and I told him about the eagle that came and everything. And the only thing he asked for was those eagle bone, with the wing
Hmm.
bone, two of them, or four of them. Got the long one and well, both of them. Where the joint is.
Right.
He wanted those bones, and I said, "Why? You gonna gnaw on it?" No, no, no. He said,
Yeah.
"No." He said, "This make good whistles. When
Oh.
from a medicine bowl, you can make a good whistle out of them." And so I got him all four of them, and man, he was so appreciative. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
I thought I gave him, gold, but he took care of them. He didn't wash them in any soap or any Clorox or anything. I mean, he washed it with yucca, yucca soap. The root
Hmm.
becomes
Hmm.
soap. Boy, he would scrub it. He'll take his time to scrubbing it. He'll let it dry, and he do it. It took him about a good 6 months to finally cut the edges off and finally cut it right to where, I mean, that eagle bone, when he made that whistle, it sounded just like an eagle. He
Ooh.
blew on it to the east, to the west, and he'd say his prayers and, and all of this. And he said, man, this is a powerful spirit, and I remember him doing that. And, and then this other tribe member, I think it was Chickasaw or something like that, wanted the talons, the big eagle talons. I mean, these were huge. And I mean, they're bigger than my hand too, And I said,
Hmm.
"What are you gonna do with them?" He said, "I just need them. I just need them." So I gave it to him, and because I cut them off in the back, to where still had the feathers and the talon on it. So I cut off in the back, and he made a I guess like a stick when he
Yeah.
powwows, the eagle talon with all the all these decorations on it. And he thanked me for it. He said, "Man, this is great. This is a good thing." And I made one for my son, the second one for my son, and but we we just use, like I said, those little back feathers of an eagle,
Hmm.
and even with the red tail, we don't really use all the feathers other than those little back feathers in the back,
Hmm.
and we use them for prayer sticks, for so
That's what it was. So I was at a powwow once and I used to dance and I had a shawl and I must have been, really dancing it up into and I was like my you know, the tassels from your shawl.
yeah,
Mine got stuck in the gentleman. There was an elder behind me and his eagle talon. prayer stick, walking stick, whatever. I can't remember how long it was, but he was like, I just felt him. I was like, "What's wrong with my shoulder?" He tapped me on the shoulder, and we had to kind of pull off to the side underneath where the drums were, and he had to get the eagle unstuck from
Trying
my
to untangle
shawl.
it. Huh?
Yeah, I was
Wow.
just swinging away. He was like, "Oh, ooh." Yeah, it feels so weird.
So, okay. Another question I have about powwow is that, you know, what's the difference
Mhm.
between jingle, fancy, hoop, and I don't know. One of them is real fancy dancer, and then the one that just,
Traditional.
just takes his time walking, but dancing.
Uh-huh.
What are they? What are those kind of dances in the powwow?
Oh, so you'll see like the traditional dancers, they're the ones that are usually they're older men. And they dance, so I'm not saying they're always older men, it's just that's just, you won't see, very many older people doing like grass dancing, which is very physical. I mean, you will, but I mean, it's kind of, I think it's kind of based on age and, ability because when I was younger, I was fancy shawl, so, that one's way more, moving and physical and, physically on your body than say jingle dress, but you're also carrying, a very heavy load with jingles depending on how many are on your dress.
Mm.
And I saw one lady, I think she was from closer to Canada and she was at a powwow and I stopped her. I said, "May I ask you what you have as your jingles?" And she said, "Deer toes." And she's like, "I mean, deer hooves." She's like, "But they're like they were just like too little." And she had them on and they were making a really cool sound when they were hitting against each other. And I was, let's see, where'd I go? Okay, so the traditional, they're a little bit older dancers. They don't have to be. It's just a category. But it's they the women will wear a lot of like buckskin or they'll be dancing at a slower, than say anybody else around them. You know. And then next after that, for the males, you'll have like fancy, which is a lot like the fancy dancer for the girls, which is fancy shawl they call it. And then they have fancy boys, and usually those are the ones you'll see them. And there's beautiful feathers. There's two of them, two hoops of feathers. And the feathers are kind of coming out like this, and it'll be on their backs. And they'll have like I can't remember what they're called, but they swing them around and they just, they're
Oh,
really fast. And then you have the fancy shawl where they have the shawl and they're spinning around and, they put their arms out and, it was to represent, like bird you know. So I mean, when I would go out, I'd have mine out like resting, and then when I would like mimic like coming, flying, I would lift the shawl up and then like turn like how you see a bird coming down. So, and then you have like the grass dancers, the male grass dancers, and they usually look like when they start really dancing, I mean, it's the flow of like the prairie, like on the wind,
mm,
or the wind on the prairie. You'll just see like everything just flowing with their movement, and that's what they're made to represent is to that, the wind, the prairie, grass, tall grass like that. And then you'll have like the women's jingle dress, and the jingles. I'm not quite sure. These things I've always known, but I've never had, never really thought to ask why the jingles. So I don't know if it's just the frequency they make or at one point everybody wore like the deer hooves for a jingle dress. That was the old way. And then, once people started using like the snuff cans because that's where they take it off and then they bend them. So that's, where
mm,
you get that. And then they have different categories too. They'll have, jingle dress for young ladies and jingle dress for older, some older ladies and stuff. But I'm probably missing something, and if I do, I apologize. But yeah, those are the ones that I grew up around because just, being on the going to Paul's every weekend and my family did concessions, so I was always at a Powell every weekend in the summer. My mom was a teacher, so she took like the summers off and we went everywhere. We were in Canada.
Wow.
Everywhere.
Okay.
Um,
One time I went to a powwow
mhm.
and they knew I was a veteran and they put a red and a blue, like a sash around my neck. And they gave me like a little, I call it rattler, like a baby rattler, one
Uh-huh.
of them things. And they said, you just get in the rhythm of the play. Watch them and do it. And of course, like I said, I didn't know anything about it.
Right.
And since they honored me about it, being a veteran, and it's what they call gore dancing. And they
Mm-hmm.
have, like I said, they gave me a little rattler and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody had, loaned it to me and all this. And I said, okay. So it's not that hard of a dance. I mean, you just, just to understand how they dance and everything and to get involved. How I really got involved, when I really got involved, I felt like the cleansing of the negativity of the military stuff that I went through coming off of me. And I kept saying, I said, wow, this score dance is cool. I mean, I'm losing a lot of my negativity that I carried around from the military. It's coming off of me. And this one medicine man that was a gore dancer too, I don't know what happened or anything, if he got a message about me or what, but he came up to me and he took me to his like a little, they got like a little tent or whatever they start out at, and he took me to that place and he just didn't sit me down. He says, he gave me all directions and everything and sat me down and in his language he said something to the people, I guess his family that was there, and they really came up to me and they were really, you know, I guess blessing me in their way with the feathers. And I kept thinking, I said, wow, this is, I mean, and I couldn't ask because to me that was disrespectful to ask when you get invited in something like that. So, but that's but the only time I really got into a power because I felt that negative stuff come off of me while I was gore dancing, and he told me later on. I asked about it from a friend, and he said, yeah, that's part of the reason. That's why it's for the veterans. They come up with shell shock and everything. And, going into that, you know, being a veteran, like I was when I was in the military, I was overseas, seeing the battles out there, what was going on and everything. And when I came home, when I came home, I, I stopped at the reservation line. And my mom and dad had brought a medicine man and met me at the reservation line. And the medicine man had to cleanse me, smudge me, cleanse
Mm-hmm.
me, and everything before I could come across into the reservation line or before I could shake hands or hug my mom or anything. He said, we have to cleanse you first and from all the negativity that you saw. And we don't want you to bring it here. So they cleansed
Right.
me. And that's what I remember going through that ceremony, and so they did. And to me, a lot of these, people that back home that have PTSD makes me wonder if they did get cleansed before they came on the reservation or did they not? Or I mean, there's a lot of ways that we cleanse people, you know, who have PTSD, and you know, one of the things that I've witnessed in the Navajo country is they have what they call squaw dance, and
Mm-hmm.
it's for the veterans that has experienced war or traumatic events while they're in the military and everything, and it's a 4 day event. And you know, I used to sheep herd with the Navajo medicine man. His name was James Sandoval. And when I was sheep herd with him, he'd always tell me, he says, let's sing some songs. I want to teach you some songs. And I said, okay. And he would sing Navajo songs for me. He would sing, and he'd tell me what they mean and everything. And
Hmm.
so I remember one time I went to a squaw dance for a friend of mine, and she asked me, she says, we don't have a singer for our what they call a dollar dance or nickel dance. Well, I don't know, whatever they call it, where a man has to go give a woman some money to dance with them. He said, we don't have a singer for that. And, everybody was panicking. I said, and me, I just said, well, I know some Navajo songs I could sing. And they said, really? Man, they got all excited. So they gave me a drum and hooked me up to the speaker. And, and I told them, I said, this is the song that I was taught when I learned how to shepherd with a Navajo man. And I told him who he was and what part of the reservation he was from. And when I was singing those songs, you know, I sang 4 songs and then I said, I need a break for my throat because that's the
Hmm.
first time I really started singing. And so they announced it. Well, let's take a break. Our singer has to take a break because of his throat. He says his throat's dry. So all you people, his throat is dry. And man, people brought soda pop, mutton ribs, and
Water.
everything to the tent that I was at. And I said, what's all this
That's
for? He said,
cool.
they want you to grease up your throat so you can come back and sing again, you know? And so, but I said, I'll do it one more time, one more round. And as I was singing that, second round, there's the original singer showed up. And
Oh, wow.
when I got done with my second round, there was this elderly lady came up to me and says, I want to record the song that you're singing. I said, why? He said, because when I was a little child, and she must have been like in her 70s, late 70s, she said, when I was a little child, my grandma used to sing these songs to me. Where did you learn these songs? How did you learn them? And all this kind of stuff. And I told him, I said, well, it came from a guy named Mr. Sandoval, who was a medicine man, and we used to sheep herd together, and he would sing these songs while we were out there in the woods, and everything, and I learned it. I learned it. I don't know why I learned it, but he was singing for me, and I learned it. And he told me, he says, if you want to do a high 2-step, you beat it a little faster. But if it's going to be a
Hmm.
medicine dance, medicine song you're healing people with, you do it slower because when you do it slower, the sand painters will keep up with you when they're doing their sand paintings. And so, I learned those songs and I still remember them, but these for the veterans, they do these ceremonies for them. And do you all have any ceremonies for your veterans?
Yes, we do. We usually, with every powwow, there's always a song to honor our veterans, our warriors, people that are there that are still, enlisted, still doing their service. I know my son was asked to come to a powwow. He showed up in his uniform or his he called I can't remember what he called him. Blues? No, that's not right. That's
Dress
Navy.
blues?
Um, yeah, he showed up in his Marine, uniform. I can't remember what he called it, but yeah. And then let's see. Yeah, it's and usually when we do like the grand entry at
Yeah.
noon and 7, there's usually one of the veterans or a few more, depending on what they're looking, what they want, will be holding like the flags. You'll have the U.S. flag. You'll have whatever tribal is there, so if they have their own flag, most of them do, they'll have that one. And then I think it's Canadian too. Because we're so close to the Canadian border, we get, a lot of Canadians and stuff.
Well, I think all powwow. I thought all powwows were the same, but they're different. They're different. I mean, there's There's the northern powwow, the southern powwow, you know, the city powwow. I don't know what they mean by city, but to me that was more of a you know, uh, just nothing but dancing. I mean, and but the northern, they more do it traditionally to where they bring out everything, they respect things, and they honor
Mhm.
everybody. And then you know I don't know, what does it mean when they carry a flag around for donation for that one particular dancer? Why do they honor that one particular dancer? You know,
Um, let's see. Well, I don't think that I've seen them bring a flag around like that. So then we might do it a little bit different in honoring. Um, Usually it's a basket, I think. It's like a really big like basket that somebody made, can be
yeah,
quite big, and then like we go around and everybody can put whatever. It's like a little donation thing, and then it's brought to the particular family or person that is in need. But we usually have like ceremonies after someone passes away, because after my father passed away, we had 1 year after he passed away, we had a ceremony for him, or like a giveaway. So my aunt was like, make sure you buy, go and buy all the. So I sat there and I collected all the stuff, like some really nice washcloths, some towels for, the kitchen, oven mitts and stuff, because she said kind of like about the kitchen. So I was getting all these things, you get those spoons and they're, a set. I mean, little knickknacks, things like that. And then I think my son was getting like linens, like sheets and stuff. And I remember we had like 4 packs of twin sheets, and we had fulls and queens, and one king comforters and stuff. And it was a giveaway. So then we'd have like some of the our family's younger generation, and also I was, because I was his daughter, and we brought out stuff and we just start handing him out to people. So this was something, that in my father's memory, we're sharing,
yeah,
the things that we, have collected. This is in honor of him. We give these to you, and it was I was trying just hard. I was like, "No cry, don't cry." My dad was always on me about don't cry. He disliked that. So, but I remember one time my mom said they were doing like some sort of like a family thing, but they wanted they sent these people out, and someone came up to my dad and they, they wanted him to draw an eagle, like an eagle, like just coming down for like a landing or something like that, and my mom was just like floored. She's like, "How did they know that he could draw?" And I said, "Well, it was like the medicine man was like pointing. He'd hand something, and someone pointed out." I was like, you know, I was like that. There are certain people that have abilities that we don't even understand. And
yeah.
he knew that my dad could draw an eagle for the family, and it was beautiful. He didn't even. He wasn't even, it was just a couple of lines and some, detailing, and he handed it back. You about three minutes. And it was just like, things that happen, at powwows is ki- hard to explain. Like sometimes I remember there would people take pictures and stuff. You take pictures. Oh, I haven't seen my cousin in a long time. And at the time we didn't have phones, so everybody had the little cameras. And you take pictures of people, and sometimes you would see what looks like smoke,
Mm.
like, but it was spirit, because spirit was there,
Hmm.
and you'd catch a little glimpse of it. Or else I smell, like, walking around, and I can smell it now, just like walk past somebody and I can smell their medicine that they use. Like they're very, you know I would consider them to be a medicine man or someone who is very strong in knowing the ways, and you can smell it on them. Well, I can't. I don't. Because I asked somebody, I was like, "What's that smell?" And they're like, "That smell," and I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "That's medicine." And I was like, "Oh." And then you just kind of don't say anything. It
Yeah.
Yeah, as a younger kid, you just try to be like, oh, okay, but you don't really know what to ask. You have a lot of
Well,
questions and
some of
stuff.
them, I don't know. When I go to an event, you know, I don't want to be rude to ask, but then,
Mhm.
it's just like back home. When I take people back home to an event like Shalako or night dances, whatever, I tell them Pueblo etiquette is very important. You know, don't be a tourist, be a guest
Mhm.
because, you can go in there and get your camera and want to record everything, even though it's forbidden. They don't like, a lot of tribes do not like camera or videos in their ceremonies.
Mhm.
They don't want to do that. And they have big signs, but, you know, there's going to be somebody that's going to be trying to challenge it. But then, the consequences are so, hard that they don't understand it. Like the consequences are they take your camera array, stomp on the ground, take that film out and burn it.
Mhm.
That's how bad that's how they feel about, getting documented about their religious activities. And I respect that. I respect people's, different tribes. And because I don't nose in ask a lot of questions, even though I do have them, I don't. But if you just basically observe from the beginning to the end, you will get a concept of the storyline that they're doing that ceremonial for, from the very beginning to the end. It's a storyline. But a lot of people, they just come in the middle of it and wanting to know this. Why you can't do that if you start from the beginning and see how they prepare for this, and then when the event's happening, you observe in a respectful manner. But then at the end, you help them celebrate whatever was accomplished, and then you think about the beginning, the preparation, the event, and then the celebration. If you think about that, it's a storyline that they are trying. Chances are they're trying to, either it's going to be about healing, cleansing, or whatever. But it's going to be an event in the family's life. And I like to go and watch other other tribes. You know their dances going on. It's like I told you. Now, some of the pueblos back home do not powwow. They have
Mhm.
a lot of traditional dancing, and social dancing, like the buffalo dance, the deer dance, the eagle dance, and all this. And those are usually the clans, like the deer clan would do the deer dance, the eagle clan would do the eagle dance, and the buffaloes will be just, be the buffalo clan, and, so people do those kinds of dances. And again, if you start from the beginning, preparation to the event, to the celebration at the end, you'll pick up the storyline. And if you follow it, you can almost predict how it's going to end, but it's really interesting. And that's why if like I go to San Felipe, if I go to Pueblo, San Felipe, which is right outside of Albuquerque, if I go to that tribe, because I got family out there, and not bloodline family, but family that my grandpa and their grandpa made created. And how is that? Is that my grandpa, Naslili and Esquivel was the San Felipe man, and Naslili, my grandpa, they both went to boarding school. And then, you know, they were always getting picked on, so they became good friends, my grandpa and him. And when they got out of school, they brought he brought his family, and my grandpa brought my family together, and we became a family. So they're a family in San Felipe, not bloodline, but in spiritual ways. So when I go to San Felipe for their feast or something like that, I try to go there before it starts. That way, I can help prepare. And then when the feast happens, I get involved. I just don't sit around and watch. I get involved. Ask them, what do you want me to do? How do I present this? How do I do this? And they do all that. And then when it's all said and done, you help them with the celebration. All right, this is what happened. And when you hear the stories about the outcome, wow, I mean, you're gonna say, wow, I was part of that. How did that happen? But it's really good, and some of the pueblos will welcome you to help them out. I've seen some non-Indians that have really good respect for the tribe, to where when they get involved, they're not left out. They get welcomed in. This is my best friend from so and so place, and watch them get brought in and everything. And when the celebration happens at the end, those people is like, I mean, they're amazed. And San Felipe is one of them that I've experienced that on. San Domingo is the other one, and Jemez. I got family out there. You know, again, may not be bloodline family, but we're family. Hey sister, hey brother, different tribes. I mean, we do all that. And when they have their celebration, again, it could be a buffalo dance, it could be an eagle dance. And, I remember the first time I went to San Ildefonso and I was watching the deer dance. I mean, I was really getting into the deer dance, and their head alacate, they call them that, and got up there on top of the roof, got a gun, and bang, shot that gun up in the air, and you watch them deer take off from the plaza. They take off, and the poor family has to go chase that deer down. Whoever is,
Oh,
their sponsor, they chase them down, and you know that deer, if he wants to, run up in the mountain, and they'd be chasing him up the mountain. And once they touch him, that deer will stop and will go with the family. But before they can touch him, boy, that deer be running around all over through the ditches and everything. The family be chasing him, and I said, "Wow, what is this going on?" But you know, it's just a thing. I mean, it's one of their traditions. And once they grab all those deer and everything, everybody, all the deer come home. It's a blessing to the family. And then, that's when the whole village, prays for everybody's safety, blessings, and everything. And that's pretty interesting. I mean, those things kind of events, that we do on the Pueblo side. That's why we don't. I mean, again, powwows are very limited on some of the pueblos in the northern tribes. But as far as Zuni, San Ildefonso, and all that, I don't hardly any see any of them powwow. Now, Zuni does have a group of powwow singers. They have some groups, but, you know, it's just young people, they like the powwow. So they got their group together, the family they got together to where they start powwowing, which is good. It's an event that they do, and I enjoy that. I enjoyed various different types of dancing, and I know we start out with powwows, but you know, we can get carried away off of different ends. But you know, what else can we bring up? Well, it's but you know, things that we want to share
hmm
with the tribal alliance. Uh, you know, I think I saw on one of your posts. You know, friends and family, brothers and sisters, if you have any topic you want us to talk about, get a hold of us. You know, like and subscribe and put it on a comment. And so we will do our best. And again, as I say, if we don't have the answers, we got elders back home that we can ask. you know, elders as in various tribes that I talk to, and so, right now is the time to start asking about spiritual events because, I asked a friend, I said, did you watch the video I sent you? Hopi Prophecy, third hand shaking. And they go, yeah, 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 it was great. It's a great video. Very informative. Very informative. I said, okay, what's the main word on that title? Hopi Prophecy, third hand shaking. What's the main word? What does it mean? What does the title mean? And they said, oh, it's about prophecy, about how we need to do that. No, I said, listen, look at the title. What's the main word in that title? And they couldn't figure it out. And I said, y'all need to start thinking about it. The main word in that third hand shaking is the last word, shaking. What happens when you shake? When you shake a person, what are you doing? You're waking them up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with this Hopi prophecy, I mean, they're not saying the world's going to end and break apart or blow up or anything. They're not what they're saying. If the earth tilts and we have to readjust our environmental life, everything, and all the Walmart shut down, yeah, how are you going to survive? What happened to our self sufficiency? These are some things that they come about. So brothers and sisters, if you got any questions, feel free to ask. Um, you want to add anything else, Eve, before we say night night?
Before we say night, let's see. And so I think with some of these earth healings, I think it's important that we like I want to start doing them. So if anybody is interested, to contact me or Greg, and we can put together like kind of, not like this prayer circle, but like an earth healing ceremony. We'll explain how you two, you can also do the same thing, and we can all do it at the same time. So, I'm just kind of throwing ideas out there, and that was kind of one thing that kind of just popped out at me that we need to start walking the walk. We understand what's wrong. Well, now we need to fix it. We need to heal the earth. So any people who are earth healers, people who are I'd like to use the term light worker pretty loosely. Anyone who is very spiritual or is interested, anyone. You don't have to be any of those and above, to be able to just send love and healing. You don't have to be a Reiki master. You don't have to be a shamanic healer. You don't have to be medicine man. You don't have to be any of that. So if anybody's interested in that, we're going to do a different thing other than the podcast. I'll do like an event type thing. I'm just like really feeling this urge to do it. So, and I usually follow my like guidance, spirit guides telling me to do things. It's a never, pointed me in the wrong direction. So, anyway, you can contact me, Eve Howard, on Facebook. I'm everywhere else too. You can do a search on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I have the podcast, which is Prime Declassified. I have my healing center, which is Rising Spirit. I'm doing life coaching right now for anyone that is in the middle or, people just don't understand how to do shadow work or trauma work. Contact, contact me. Anything else? Eve Howard 21 at mail.com. You can reach out, send me an email. You can instant message me, any of the platforms. Thank you. Miigwech.
Okay, well that sounds great. I'm in whatever we decide to do, and I'm I'm here to do mentorship. If you need more guidance and various type of ceremony, other ceremonies such as cleansing and protection, cleansing your home, your business, your land, protection of you, your family, and whomever. And we also do some healing. But we're here, and so to get a hold of me, you can find me at One Nation Tribal Alliance Facebook group. Click and join. And if you have any questions, put your comments in there and I'll respond. Or when you watch our video, like and subscribe and put in your questions or your comments because when we premiere this videos, I'm on it, and so somebody, either me or Eve, will be on it to respond. Or sometimes both of us are on it. So, we want to be able to share the knowledge with y'all. So you can find me also at our website, which is healthy and harmonious lifestyle.com. And I say that again, healthy and harmonious lifestyle.com. And we should have the link below when I get this done. But, you know, we want to be able to share the knowledge again. And we were here for y'all. So feel free to get a hold of us. And again, thank you for watching. And we love y'all. And we will see you next time. Uh, so have a wonderful day. Bye bye.
Bye.